Hello there. My name is Hayley Roos and I'll be your virtual teacher for today. I've lived in New Orleans, Louisiana my whole life and I love going on trips to the swamp to see the alligators, frogs, and other creepy crawlies that live there. This lesson is going to be for kids around or in 3rd grade. Before we begin, I'd like for everyone to draw a quick map of Louisiana from memory. It doesn't have to be perfect. Also, I would like it if you can count on your fingers as many features of Louisiana's geography as you can remember. Write the number down somewhere on the paper you drew your map on. And just pause the video right here and click play again when you're done with those two things. I'll leave a few seconds of silence here so you have time to pause. Okay, now that you've clicked play again, let's find out what today will be about and what activity we will do. Today we will be learning about Louisiana and its geography. This includes landmarks, wildlife, and other traits about our state. We will then do an activity where we collage different landmarks into the shape of Louisiana. The goal of today's lesson is to know how to draw an outline map of Louisiana from memory, know the major landmarks of Louisiana, and finally be able to locate those landmarks on a map. Rivers. Louisiana has the widest part of the country's longest river, the Mississippi River. The Mississippi River Basin makes 92% of the agriculture, like fruits and vegetables, shipped outside of the country. These are called exports. There are at least 260 different types of fish that live inside the river from Minnesota to Louisiana. That's 1 out of 4 fish species discovered in North America. Louisiana doesn't only have the Mississippi River. There are plenty of other rivers like the Pearl River on the east side and the Sabine River on the west side of the state. Lakes. Louisiana's biggest lake is Lake Pontchartrain. It has the longest bridge that stays over water in the world, the Pontchartrain Expressway. The lake is north of New Orleans. The water in the lake is brackish, which means it isn't all salt water like the oceans and isn't all fresh water like many other lakes. There are many other lakes in Louisiana, and many of its southern lakes are getting bigger as the land erodes away. That means the land is becoming more watery until it is washed away. Erosion is a big problem in Louisiana, as it is losing a lot of land over time from erosion caused by people, storms, and other ways. Climate. Louisiana is very rainy, especially near the coast of the Gulf of Mexico. Louisiana is prone to hurricanes, tornadoes, and flooding. Due to the southern state being close to the equator, the part of the earth closest to the sun, it is very hot. The direct closeness to the Gulf of Mexico means it has very wet air, which means it is very humid. It gets very hot in the summer and rarely snows in the winter, even when it occasionally gets cold enough to freeze. The climate is known as subtropical, which means it is close to the tropics but isn't quite tropical itself. Physical details. Louisiana is relatively flat with some hills farther up from the swamplands. Even the highest point is Mount Driscoll at 535 feet above sea level, while the lowest point is the city of New Orleans, which is around 5 feet below sea level. Keep in mind that the world's smallest official mountain is only 486 feet above sea level. There are not many mountains in Louisiana. The state is instead known for its bayous, the marshy part around a body of water. Swamp, marshes, and bayous take up a good amount of Louisiana's land. In fact, 40% of America's wetlands are in Louisiana alone. Location. Louisiana is below Arkansas on a map. It is sandwiched between Texas and Mississippi on its other sides and is north of the Gulf of Mexico. There are 5 physical regions of Louisiana: North Louisiana, Central Louisiana, Acadiana, the Florida parishes, and Greater New Orleans. Let's go through the characteristics of each, starting from North Louisiana. North Louisiana is also known as Sportsman's Paradise because it is filled with many forests, rivers, and small lakes for hunting, wildlife watching, and fishing. The hilly region of the central Louisiana extends into parts of North Louisiana. Sometimes the whole state is referred to as the sportsman paradise, but in general it really refers to just North Louisiana. Central Louisiana is also known as the Crossroads. It has a mix of all sorts of different geographical features, including hills, deciduous forests, which means that the trees lose their leaves in the fall, prairies, and a few swamps. Acadiana's coastal section is filled with marshes and bayous, while its more northern section features some hills and dry prairies. Sugarcane and rice grow really well here and are the main crops from this region. The Florida parishes are on the east side of the Mississippi River. This is also known as the North Shore. If you want to take the easiest route from New Orleans to the Florida parishes, most people cross Lake Pontchartrain. It has many pine trees and freshwater marshes. It seems like a lot of Louisiana is filled with wetlands. Are you noticing a pattern? Last but not least, Greater New Orleans is very low to the ground and sometimes is below sea level. Greater in this context means not only the city of New Orleans, but Orleans Parish and surrounding parishes. It is the most densely populated area of Louisiana, which means although it is smaller than other regions, it has many people living in it close together. Although the amount of people has significantly dropped after people in the city of New Orleans itself were displaced by Hurricane Katrina. It has many cities in it, and even the cities have bayous and swamps within them. The Mississippi floodplain. The areas closer to the river are taller than the areas farther from the river because before the Mississippi River was held in one spot by humans, it would flood often and spread sediment like dirt and sand taken from the north along the river. Areas that would flood from the Mississippi River are called the Mississippi floodplains. Nearly all of the Florida parishes, Greater New Orleans area, and Central Louisiana used to be flooded over by the Mississippi, while other two regions were partially flooded as well. Now let's have a quick guide on how to draw the state of Louisiana. Louisiana itself is shaped like a big boot facing right. The top of Louisiana is a straight line, and there is a straight line below on the border between Louisiana and Mississippi. The Mississippi River flows down until that line separates the two states before cutting through and going to New Orleans. After the second straight line, the border on the right is created by the Pearl River and continues until the Gulf. The left side of Louisiana has a straight line going straight down from the top for a bit before becoming wobbly again, as the state is separated from Texas by the Sabine River. In my opinion, the hardest part of Louisiana to draw is the border along the Gulf of Mexico and the shape of Lake Pontchartrain cutting into the shape on the lower right side. I always draw the two straight lines first to center myself. They are not touching but also not directly above each other like an equal sign. I also get the general shape of the state as a boot before I erase lines and start getting more detailed. Once again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but if you want to practice, it's always good to have a map to copy or trace until you can do it without looking. Let's have you try drawing the state again from memory. Then, just like before, count on your fingers to see how many geographical features of the state you remember and be sure to write that number down too. I'll give you a few seconds of silence so you have time to pause before we do our activity. As you have seen from my hands in the video playing in the background this whole time, we are making a collage today. We will need scissors, glue, paper, pictures of things from the 5 regions of Louisiana, and a black marker for the outlines. I started by sketching out the state and then I traced it with a big black marker. That way I would be able to see it through the pictures that were printed out because it will shine through. Then I started cutting out larger pictures to put in the background. I put them in the areas where they belonged and made sure that they would fit nicely. Where they didn't fit, I trimmed them by tracing over them the top so I knew where the line would go. Sometimes I didn't get it quite right, but I did my best and always had enough pictures around me to restart if I had to. Once I had assembled the areas that I thought looked nice, I went ahead and started gluing things down. It didn't really help that I was working outside and it was a little bit windy, so I had to glue things fast. Once I had gotten the main parts glued down so that you couldn't see any of the yellow paper below, I started adding my, they like to call it pizzazz, I believe. I added my favorite pictures that were cut out very cleanly so that it felt like they were popping off of the page. At this point, you can do whatever you'd like once you've covered everything up. I would say even add glitter if you like glitter, or maybe some special colored tape, or add your own flourish using some markers. It's really all up to you, but it's a really good way to learn how the state looks, where things are, and also things about different areas in the state that you may not have been to. I hope that this was fun, and we're about to do a little review. See you there soon. Now it's time for a quick review. Louisiana is a state in the southern part of the United States of America. It has a lot of different wildlife, fish, and plants. Louisiana has a humid, subtropical climate. Louisiana is home to the largest river in North America, the Mississippi River. Most of the state is very flat, but there are a few smallish mountains. It is known as the Bayou State along with other nicknames because it has many swamps, marshes, and bayous in it. We learned these traits of Louisiana, its 5 regions, and made our very own collaged map of it. I'd like to know what your favorite part was, what was something new that you learned, and if you make something similar with collaging again, what kind of picture would you make? Thanks for watching. I hope you have a great week.